Hey, what's going on, gang? Nate on the Stone here. Welcome back to my channel. The gloves have officially come off when it comes to social media. This past weekend, I made a video where I talked about how Twitter and Facebook had started censoring the New York Post, the oldest continuously published newspaper in the United States, and, historical tidbit, the one founded by Alexander Hamilton, because the Post was trying to spread on social media a story that it broke concerning Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. Now, you can watch that video here, but in case you don't want to click that and want to keep watching this one, here is a quick sum up. The Post obtained emails showing that Hunter Biden had tried to use his connection to his father, then VP Joe Biden, to boost his pay with Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company on whose board Hunter sat, even though he had no background in that particular line of work. As the Post wrote, quote, "In a lengthy memo to his then business partner, Devon Archer, who already sat on the Burisma board, Biden repeatedly mentioned 'my guy,' while apparently referring to then Vice President Joe Biden. Under President Barack Obama, the elder Biden was the point person for U.S. policy toward Ukraine, as he held a press conference there with Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk on April 22, 2014. Hunter Biden's email to Archer is dated a little more than a week earlier. As already mentioned, Twitter and Facebook completely censored the story, making it impossible to share it on their respective platforms. And even as of this recording, Twitter has still locked the New York Post out of its official Twitter account until it deletes the offending tweets in which the story is nestled. But wait, there's more. Twitter also locked out the Trump campaign from its official Twitter account and, in another stunning turn of events, locked out conservative mainstream critic Charlie Kirk, the founder and president of Turning Point USA, and deleted a tweet from Dr. Scott Atlas, the White House coronavirus advisor, simply because Dr. Atlas's tweet in particular questioned the effectiveness of facial masks in stopping the spread of COVID-19. The official explanation for all this, at least from the conservative end of the spectrum, was that the American right had been far too blasé when social media had come for people on the fringe. Lauren Chen, for instance, tweeted out that mainstream Kirk being silenced was a direct result of the American conservative movement not saying a peep when social media had booted off of its platform people like conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. "I said nothing when they came for Alex Jones. I said nothing when they came for Charlie Kirk. And so there was no one left when they came for me." Or something like that. Now that could completely have something to do with this. Although you don't really get a lot of people on your side defending you when you claim, for example, that the Sandy Hook school shooting, a shooting that left 27 people dead, including 20 kids, was nothing but a conspiracy theory and a hoax, and that the parents who actually lost kids in that shooting were lying through their teeth. I know that the First Amendment needs to be defended regardless of any one particular person's peccadillos, but common sense would seem to dictate that you don't get a lot of people on your side and to be your allies when you sprout off conspiracy theories like that. But regardless of whether or not defending Alex Jones led to Charlie Kirk being silenced, there are two bigger reasons why what's happening right now is actually happening. In the first place, and as we have talked about before here on the channel, the very nature of social media makes censorship practically guaranteed. Language and communication are power. Why is that? Because, as we have also said before here on the channel, language, again, is the house of being, meaning that every word that expresses and conveys a concept has part of that concept within itself. So for example, the reason why I have the image, the idea of a tree in my mind when you say the word tree, is because part of the essence of a tree, part of what makes a tree what it is and separates it from every other thing, visible and invisible in the cosmos, is in the word tree. And this isn't just true for English. This holds true for every single language. So part of the essence of a tree is also in l'arbre, der Baum, Zud Biemud, Kopak, ici l'allée. And power has a tendency to corrupt because, human nature being what it is, we are very easily swayed to abuse our power out of pride, lust, dominance, even good intentions, the things that the road to hell is paved with. Seen in this light, social media represents one of the biggest consolidations of power in modern history. A few companies who now control the streams of communication that we use every day in our everyday lives. It was inevitable that they were going to become corrupt. But wait, I can hear you saying from wherever you are and whatever time zone you're in, social media companies can't get away with that. There are rules that they have to follow, and democratically elected governments concerned with the welfare of their people would never allow them to become technological despots. Yes, there are rules, but the rules are written and controlled by the social media companies themselves. Twitter, for example, justified its censorship via its rules against quote-unquote misinformation. For example, in Dr. Scott Atlas's case, Twitter announced that Dr. Atlas's tweet, quote, was in violation of our COVID-19 misleading information policy that prohibits sharing false or misleading content related to COVID-19, which could lead to harm. But how could that be when Dr. Atlas's original tweet simply repeated information that has originated and has been spread by, for example, the CDC and the WHO, two supposedly reputable organizations when it comes to health and illness? Well, it turns out that Twitter actually updated its misinformation guidelines back in September, so that now it can remove or delete tweets that include, but are not limited to, false or misleading information that causes confusion about the laws and regulations of a civic process, or officials and institutions executing those civic processes, disputed claims that could undermine faith in the process itself, e.g. unverified information about election rigging, ballot tampering, vote tallying, or certification of election results, misleading claims about the results or outcome of a civic process which calls for or could lead to interference with the implementation of the results of the process, e.g. claiming victory before election results have been certified, inciting unlawful conduct to prevent a peaceful transfer of power or orderly succession. And that leaves us with two major problems. First, we know that the leftist ideology runs big tech, and we also know that the left has been working overtime to change language, definitions, how we use words, how we communicate, etc. Well, the inverse of the ability to redefine words however you want is that words that you want left undefined, words that you want left vague, will stay vague. This is exactly what Twitter is doing with the word misinformation. This is why Atlas's original tweet was shot down like a clay pigeon, even though all he was doing was repeating information that had already been said by accredited health organizations. The second problem is that these rules can be changed on the turn of a dime. Twitter actually, in its blog about the updating of its misinformation policy rules, made some general aside about users contacting them saying that stronger regulations needed to be put in place to push back against the misinformation on the platform, but nothing more was elaborated beyond that. The practical application of this is that social media companies can change whatever rules they want, whenever they want, however they want, for whatever reason that they want. And in fact, this is already happening. While Twitter and Facebook were busy bullying the New York Post, YouTube updated its rules regarding conspiracy videos, allowing it to actually completely erase more videos regarding the QAnon conspiracy, which states that President Trump is battling a secret global cabal of Satanists and pedophiles who want to rule the world.
Of course!
And regardless of what you think about the QAnon conspiracy in and of itself, the fact remains that YouTube, 2 weeks before a presidential election, changed its policy rules to remove more videos made by people who enthusiastically support the president. It's pretty clear by now that we're nothing but ants to the big tech industrial complex. The big question looming over our heads like the sword of Damocles is, what are we going to do about it? In fact, to put a finer point on it, what can we do about it? Now, numerous suggestions have been made, everything from reforming Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996 to allowing the free market to actually give Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc., 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 some actual genuine competition. Both, however, have problems. It's hard to have free market competition to the big social media boys when no one wants to leave the big social media boys. Parler, for example, was supposed to be the great answer to Twitter, a platform just like Twitter, only better, that was going to allow complete and unadulterated free speech. And everyone was waiting with breathless anticipation the great Twitter exodus when Parler was rolled out to the free market 2 years ago in 2018. An exodus that never really happened. At best now, Parler is just a backup, so that if Twitter censors you, your fans and followers will know where to find you. The sad truth of the matter is that no one wants to go to an imitation platform, especially when the originals still have the weight of their prestige behind them. It's the same reason why people still want to go to and graduate from Harvard, Chicago, Yale, or Princeton. Those names still mean something intrinsically in and of themselves, regardless of how far down the toilet those institutions have sunk. Plus, the people who have actually built up audiences on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, of the hundreds of thousands or even the millions, do we really think that those people are going to sacrifice those fans, followers, that audience, simply for the common good? Call me cynical, but I don't think so. And on top of that, who has time to actually create, market, advance, and promote a new social media platform when you're trying to actually raise your family? Heck, if you're just trying to keep your own body and soul together. In reformation of Section 230, I am fully for it. I am here for it. I just don't know if it'll actually come to pass, in large part because so many people in the conservative vocabulary are scared to death of even touching it. Heck, of even looking at it sideways. If we do that, they warn ominously, then free speech on the internet will be as dead as the dodo. If we even think about giving the government even one more iota of power, we'll be off down a slippery slope so fast we won't even know we'll have hit the bottom until we find ourselves drowning in mud. It's definitely interesting how we could completely redefine marriage, the family, with absolutely no problems whatsoever. I mean, that's just advancing the causes of freedom and equality, right? No negative repercussions there, but give the government more power? Zutador! Of course, the $64 question is, are we free now on the internet?
Well, I suppose that we could take an academic view of the subject, and comparing our present situation with past totalitarian regimes, we could possibly come to the conclusion that...
No, we definitely are not. Make alternate platforms. Work to reform Section 230. If you want to do that, then Josh Hawley, the junior senator from Missouri, is the man to back. But ultimately, this problem of social media censorship is only going to be solved through two solutions. A short-term one and a long-term one, in my humble opinion. Short-term, the government needs to be given the power to check and to break up these big social media tech companies. I know, conservatives are supposed to be the last people on earth who would actually advocate for giving the government even more power. But on the flip side, it's also true that we can no longer keep living in the little boxes that the social media companies keep carving out for us. And hey, if we're lucky, maybe the government and the big social media companies will just end up eating each other. And if they don't, well, that leads us to the long-term solution, which is honestly, in my mind, the only solution that is actually going to work. That long-term solution is this. We need a cultural revolution. Social media companies aren't just censoring their enemies because that's the logical end result of the very nature of social media, but also because the culture is inundated with leftism, which states that its enemies, the enemies of leftism, have no right to speak, to raise opinions, or even to ask questions. In this way, the culture has become a light shadow of the old USSR. Did you know, for example, that the Soviet Constitution of 1936, aka Stalin's Constitution, guaranteed all the people of the Soviet Union freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of assembly in Section 125? Well, it did. As long, of course, as that speech Those newspapers and those assemblies were in line with Soviet ideology and Soviet politics. If you breathed a word against Comrade Stalin, against the policies of the USSR, against Marxism, against the new Soviet man, you basically had given yourself a one-way ticket to a gulag in Siberia. Similarly, we still, officially at least, have freedom of speech. It's right there in the First Amendment of the Constitution. Practically speaking, however, we do not. Only a complete rethinking will change this light Soviet attitude. And in order to do that, we will require a cultural revolution. A revolution that will restore to our society the attitude that people should be able to speak freely and associate freely so that they can come together and reason together for the sole purpose of discerning the truth. Truth with a capital T. Until that time, until that cultural revolution happens, things are only going to get worse. But as always, what say you? What are some other ways that social media could finally be brought to heel, or at least partially muzzled? As always, let me know your thoughts, ideas, and opinions in the comment box below. Well, that about wraps up everything for right now, gang. Before you go, if you could give the video a like and share it with your friends on social media, if you can still do that, then I would be very much obliged if you would. Really helps me and the channel grow. And if you like videos about culture, politics, and religion from a different and unique POV, then subscribe and ring that bell for notifications so that you will always know when I post new videos like this every week. As always, thank you for watching, for giving me a little bit of your day, and thank you to everyone who has already subscribed to my channel. I appreciate every single one of you. So until next time, gang, stay safe, stay free, by daring to read, think, speak, and write. I'll chat to you later. Ciao.